Hey, this is Manny Moonraker, and this is a UFO report, but it's a special one. It is number 68, but we're going to talk about a couple of questions that we sent to EBE Ollie through Ilona and Ivana Podhrázská out in the Czech Republic. Now, this opportunity was posted in UBR Truth Seekers, so if you're not into this particular side of ufology, the regular UFO report will come back tomorrow, number 69. We'll talk about whatever's going on in the UFO news. I did post this in UBR Truth Seekers, and we picked two questions to send to the Podhrázská ladies out in the Czech Republic to get some answers from the EBE that goes by the name of Ollie. So if you don't know the story, basically this particular EBE communicates with Ivana Podhrázská through the process of mediumship, and then that activity is then translated by Ilona. The one that I received messages from is Ilona, and so we sent her the questions back on November 11th, I believe. But if you want to know what this process is like, there is a video that I posted within the description of this particular episode. It's a YouTube video, and you actually get to see the process that they go through when they receive these messages, or they have this back and forth with this EBE Ollie. So this type of activity is not new, and this is why I've recently kind of decided to go into the paranormal side of ufology. That's the side that so many people believe should be taken out of the equation. Now, if you recall, we've had some conversations here from people we've interviewed that show that historically there is that paranormal connection to ufology and ET. One particular group that comes to mind is the information we've gotten regarding the Vril and the Germans. They also took a process not too much different from what the Czech Republic girls are doing right now. And this is not something new to them. They've actually been doing this for over 2 decades, close to 24 years. Their very first communication with this humanoid that goes by the name of Ollie from the 12th dimension started back in 1993 on March the 2nd. And they received their first message, and basically it was an intro, letting them know exactly who Ollie was and what the intention was as well. The very first opening line is, "I'm not a ghost, I'm an alien from the planet Elijah." He goes on to say that he comes in peace and he's looking to save the planet from nuclear explosion and the potential destruction of the universe. He says they chose the Czech Republic girls because Ivana was endowed with a special ability, and I'm sure that's her ability to be a medium. So during this introduction, I guess the Czech Republic girls had some questions for this EBE. Some of the answers were, "What are your eyes?" The reply was that they are large and handsome. Apparently, they measure about 20 meters and weigh about 20 kilos. And their skin color is white, and they produce artificially. According to this, they use needles. They also describe their hands as having 4 fingers and are about 39 light years away. But they describe the travel to planet Earth to be relatively quickly. A fascinating part about this first communication that we see in this particular item that Podhrázská girls posted is that this EBE apparently said that they had landed in 1993 on March 27th and February 7th in Ecuador and Cuba. While I'm sure it might be a little difficult to go back and try to find any UFO sightings in the country of Cuba at that point, it'd be good to go back and search to see if Ecuador had any UFO sightings on that particular date. But that shows you basically that they've been at this for a very long time. The two hairdressers from the Czech Republic are not new to these type of communications with this EBE. On November 11th, we sent 2 questions, and their interaction through this process of mediumship took 90 minutes. So 90 minutes they were there communicating with the Ebe Ollie. And some of the topics that they covered was Jesus of Nazareth, Nephilims, demigods, dimensions, pyramids, Egypt, and how the pyramids are activated. So I can tell you now that these interactions, and I think it almost happens every week, these interactions are jam-packed with information. What you will see is that the English is a bit broken up, right? So they're translating the information from Ollie to Ivana, and then from Ivana to Ilona, and then from Ilona it gets translated into English. So by no means is this an easy task whatsoever, but let's get to the 2 questions that we sent. So the first question, one of our members of UBR Truth Seekers has apparently read some of the previous messages from this EBE. So the question was that EBE at one point predicted that there would be a storm on the planet Earth, November 2017, and they wanted to know which part of the Earth would be hit the worst. The response from the EBE was more that this storm was more molecular energy in nature, and it's those type of currents that would be pretty much attacking the Earth. Now, they did say that the storm itself would extend into the deeper layers of the interior Earth, and that it is basically a storm of a natural origin or spectrum that is not artificially produced. Even though he made note that there are a lot of artificially induced disasters currently happening on the planet, but that both types, the natural and unnaturally induced, are occurring not only on the surface but also below the surface of the planet. And according to the EBE, what we are seeing is that the planet is enveloped in an electromagnetic storm. And that is why we are seeing the effects, not only just on the surface, but also below in the interior portions of the planet. And it's more of a molecular effect. The second question is one of those that people struggle with a lot when it comes to the idea of extraterrestrials and their own origin, basically. The second question that was posted in UBR Truth Seekers is the question was, who was Jesus of Nazareth? Now, I can tell you something really interesting. We were the second group that actually sent that question over to the Czech Republic, to the Podhrázská ladies. So a second person did ask that question for another podcast or show. So I'm going to read this exactly how it was sent, and then you guys can, make what you will of it. I'm also going to post the message in UBR Truth Seekers in case you want to read it firsthand, as it is posted to me, unedited. So here we go. So according to the Ebe Olie, the response was Jesus of Nazareth is not the original name. The name is inscribed as Joshua Iris Cross Crucifix Iris Inri in the same. Everything is changed in the Bible. Iris, goddess. She was closely connected with the cross and Jesus. Jeshua or Joshua is not the prerequisite for expression. Joshua, it's also Jesus. The origin of the extraterrestrial being of Joshua was in the next stage of Jeshua, and in the third stage of Jesus. Everything was called by the church, and people do not understand the source of the church, that Jesus was an extraterrestrial ruler. I tell Jesus because you understand this more. Jesus was sent, He was an ancillary being, Iris, and their ruler, Isis. There were two goddesses sent to Earth together with Jesus. They come from constellations of another dimension that your eyes do not see. The constellation Delta, but that dimension is not far from your dimension. It's almost connected. Jesus still has his origin from Joshua. It is the extraterrestrial name. So basically what we're hearing here is that there are several names for the individual that we know as Jesus Christ, but that the origin of this individual is extraterrestrial in nature, and there appears to be some, some commonality with the goddess Isis and Iris. But the message continued. Jesus was sent for another task. Your people were already at the beginning of birth. Joshua had the task of putting mankind in memory of evolution and shift on your planet to make him preach supernatural. But he appeared together with goddess Iris and Isis, and the law took a different direction of learning. There was a source of certain unclears. They attacked each other like you in war. Goddesses and demigod come from the same dimension as Jesus. They are there with them, but the goddess has a different body material. Joshua has an energetic material body without heaviness, without weight. Jesus, he knows about the earth, but he is not sent. They may have sent another extraterrestrial demigod. So far, your system controls other forces from other dimensions. Under the surface of your Earth and on the surface. I told you earlier that the old law replaced the new law. History has repeated, but not entirely. What's interesting about these messages is that they really are, in many ways, difficult to digest because we literally do not have a good point of reference. But I think that with over 2 decades of information, I'm sure that if we were to go back to the original messages and go from there over the last 2 decades, we might be able to kind of piece this together in a more clear and concise manner. But there is still something here. I mean, these two individuals are not doing this for money and fame. You know, they are still hairdressers in the Czech Republic, and from time to time they've seen the people in their town turn on them because of these messages. So this is not necessarily about money and glory and things like that. They firmly believe that they are in contact with an EBE and that there is a message that needs to be shared. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and post this in UBR Truth Seekers. That is the Facebook group for UFO Buster Radio. And as I get more messages from them, you know, I'll share them and post them in there as well. If you want, like I said, if you want to read these firsthand, your best bet is to join UBR Truth Seekers. Go in there. And, you know, as I mentioned before, this episode is not for everyone, because I know initially when we first had the story about the Czech Republic girls, it was 50-50. A lot of people just didn't want to hear it. They'd rather just stick to the science of trying to solve the whole ufology thing. But I think we would be making a grave mistake in leaving the paranormal aspect of this and trying to just use science to figure it out. I'll catch you guys tomorrow for the regular episode. This is Manny checking out. Ciao.